Venerable Legtsok, thank you for joining us. I wanted to introduce everyone watching to Venerable Legtsok. Venerable Legtsok is an American Buddhist monk who ordained in 2001. He has been studying the Nalanda tradition of Buddhism in India and Nepal since 1999 and has been living and studying at Sarah J. Monastic University in Karnataka State, South India for the past 17 years. And on December 10th of this year, he began his 18th year of study in the Geshe degree program. And he has also been very kindly teaching regularly at CKSL since 2005. And so we thank him very much for joining us today and look forward to our conversation.
May I request Venerable Legtsok to give open aspiration?
An aspiration? Sure, yeah. So at the outset, then let's try to generate a motivation or an intention that we're engaging in this conversation, this open heart conversation, not in order to inflate our ego or for desire for worldly fame or something like that, but purely in order to bring about the welfare and benefit and happiness of all sentient beings in the world, to bring some benefit to the world, in short. Okay, so with that intention, then what's your first question?
Okay, Venerable, my first question goes like this. What is the prerequisites to start a meditation?
Prerequisites for meditation. There are no formal prerequisites. You have to have a mind, at least. So we all have a mind. All human beings have a mind. And then you have to have some, obviously, some interest, right? But then basically, I think anybody, anybody can meditate. With that, of course, it's helpful if you seek out some instruction first. But I was thinking it's kind of like exercise. If you have a body and you can move in some way, then you can exercise, right? So the first thing is just to start, actually, and then gradually you learn about different kinds of exercise, whether it's yoga or sports or whatever, and then you develop your kind of practice from there. So I think meditation, the first thing is just to start by sitting and watching your mind or watching your breath, learning to try to focus your attention on one thing, and then you build from there.
Okay, Venerable, thank you so much.
Yeah. Nicole, you have the next question?
Yes, thank you, Venerable Legtsok. So the question is that you very kindly led us in an opening aspiration, and at the end of our conversation, we'll ask you if you can lead us in a dedication. And why are aspirations and dedications important? What are they? Should they be part of one's daily personal practice? And how do you know how to create a good aspiration and dedication?
Yeah, good question. I mean, yeah, first of all, definitely, aspiration at the beginning of an activity, we think about why we're doing that activity. That's basically what an aspiration is, and then come up with some reason, and then intend that by doing this activity, we work towards achieving that goal that we have in mind. And a dedication is kind of at the end, thinking, well, all whatever merit or whatever positive kind of energy I've created through doing this activity, may it become a cause for achieving long-term goals for myself and for all other sentient beings. So I think it's definitely worthwhile to do in our daily practice, and not just in the context of religious activities, but even in our secular life, just our ordinary activities. I mean, too often we don't think about why we're doing what we're doing. We're just kind of like a sheep following the flock, or like doing things because other people expect us to, or because we feel like out of fear, because if I don't do this, I don't know what's going to happen. So oftentimes we're just not conscientious enough about why we're doing what we're doing. What do we want to achieve with our life, on the world and on other people and on our family and our community and so forth. So generating an aspiration every day at the beginning of each day, it helps bring those questions to mind again and again. And the way we answer those questions will change over time as our ideas about what's important, what's possible, how our lives relate to the lives of others. As our ideas about ourselves and others change, our aspiration will change. But it's very worthwhile just to reflect a little bit, each day on, why am I getting up this morning? Why am I doing anything at all? And then, but of course, we want our aspiration to be something that leads us to happiness. And we want all our activities to be something that genuinely contributes to bringing about our welfare and the welfare of others. So then we have to, think about that. I mean, I think one key aspect of a good aspiration is that it's not restricted to oneself and one's own likes and one's own desires alone, because that can easily feed into more attachment, more impatience, jealousy, or other afflictive emotions. So our aspiration and thereby all of our actions should be motivated in a way that they bring us more peace, more satisfaction, and also that they make us feel more connected with others. So because one of the main causes of all of our disturbed states of mind is being selfish, egocentric. So therefore, I think one key aspect of an aspiration is that it includes not just ourselves, but we recognize that our lives are interconnected with those of countless others, and that we motivate each day that whatever I do, may it benefit me, of course, but not only me, may it bring well-being and benefit to my family, to my neighbors, my community, and the world at large. And we don't have to know how that's going to happen, in fact, but at least we start thinking about it, and at least by generating that intention, it does kind of set our actions in that direction of bringing about welfare and benefit. And then at the end, we dedicate. Then at the end of the day, we reflect on our actions and see, did I actually live in accordance today? Did I act and live in accordance with my kind of highest goals and aspirations? Where we did, we congratulate ourselves. And where we didn't, we reflect, oh yeah, I made some mistakes. I kind of, let myself down there. I'll try to do better tomorrow. And then a dedication is like a prayer, praying that, well, may I become a better person. May I contribute to the welfare of the world at the end. So it's a very good way to begin and end each day. It makes us more mindful of how we're using our lives.
Thank you.
Netizen, what's your question?
Every day, if we wake up, the first thing, if we read in the newspaper, is disturbance. If we turn on a TV, disturbance, violence. There is no nation which is living peaceful. There is no news which showing a peaceful world. So considering the current situation in the world, we are disturbed by seeing others are disturbed. So I request, what's your suggestion to keep our mind calm and peaceful, even though we have to deal with a disturbed world in daily life?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, it's like, well, like this. I mean, if there were, say in Bangalore, where you live, in a big city, if there were like 5 bombs, set to go off, spread at different places, and then the police found out about them, and they brought them all to your house and said, there are 5 bombs here, you would feel like, oh, there's a lot of bombs about to go off. You'd feel very afraid. But if you're on the other side of, or if you're in any other place in Bangalore at that moment, you wouldn't feel afraid. You'd feel like, oh, it's very safe here. The police just cleared the whole area of bombs. So like when we look at the news, what they do is, in the news, they bring together all the bad things that have happened and present them in one place. So if we form our picture of the world just based on the news, it looks really bad. But actually the world's not like that. I mean, it's important to look in our local communities, our local experience, like how much violence is there? I mean, like where I live in a monastery, and I mean, not only the monastery, the whole like extended taluk, it's like the county where I live here, there's hardly any violence. I mean, there's not, it's very rare. I mean, maybe, I mean, probably once a day, there's not even one fight, among people. Maybe a murder, I think there's been one murder in like the last 5 years or something like that. So, and in the monastery, even less. So it's generally, I think most of us, we live in very peaceful places, but then we forget that when we see the news, and we just remember all these kind of traumatic things that are being reported in the news. So it's very important to consider, this all has to do with our negativity bias. And when we hear about one negative thing that happened, we tend to remember that and not remember all the good things that have happened. So
true.
if you look at actual data, this is why I really like Steven Pinker, and there's one really good book by him called Enlightenment Now, another called The Better Angels of Ourselves, where he really looks at the data of how much violence has there been like in the last 200 years. And you see there's a steady decline. We live in one of the most peaceful, prosperous eras ever in human society. That's not to say there aren't a lot of problems. I think global warming and climate destruction is a much bigger problem. But I think in either case, like, we have to focus on ourselves first. We're part of the world, right? So like Gandhi said, we have to be the change we want to see. Like, you know, each day we have to try to be the best person we can and have the best influence on others, you know, that we immediately meet in our family or in our community, that we can, and build up from there, right? That's where it starts. Otherwise, if we just look at the big world picture and feel like everything's terrible and it's hopeless, it's just self-defeating. We undermine our own ability to make a positive influence. So we have to really remember that we have an ability to make a positive influence every day with each interaction with someone, with each activity we do.
Yes, yes, Venerable Legtsok. So people talk about having a daily practice. What exactly does that mean? And what, if you wanted to have a daily practice, what would you do? And what time of day do you do it? Maybe you could just give, you know, some suggestions.
You mean like a daily golf practice or daily?
Well, that's actually part of the question.
There's all kinds of daily practices.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I mean like a daily practice very much like aligned with your answer to the previous question about why it's important. No, I know, but it's
usually mean a daily meditation practice or, you know, some kind of spiritual practice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean everything it's like, when we talk about Buddhist practice, right? Usually we assume there's some meditation and meditation sessions involved, right? Because that's kind of like our workout for the mind, you know? If we want to have a healthy body, we need to do exercise, you know, some session of exercise every day. So if we want to improve our mental health, right, we need to work with our mind, spend some time, you know, focusing on working with our mind every day, identifying the destructive, you know, emotions and destructive thought patterns that we have and reducing those, and then identifying, you know, positive, constructive emotions and perspectives and outlooks and increasing those, right? So we need to spend some time studying and thinking about what we've read, and then also meditating to try to integrate what we learn, you know, into our character more deeply. So but in general, we can divide every day between into two times: the time during meditation sessions, which is like preparation for all the other time. So all the other time is the time between meditation sessions, right? So if we're serious about, you know, doing some kind of spiritual practice in any religious tradition, but especially Buddhism, then we do a meditation session in the morning and a meditation session, you know, in the evening. The length of time varies on how much time, you know, how much time and energy we have and so forth. But the benefit of having a daily practice is, again, we become more mindful about how we're using our mind and our intention, because all of our actions of our speech, the way we speak and the way we use our body, it all begins with, you know, intentionality, because they're volitional actions, right? So why we're doing something, what is our intention? So and how we're thinking about things, how we're thinking about other people, that determines like how we use our speech, how we use our body. So yeah, so the purpose is of a daily practice basically is to deal with problems as they arise in our life, in our mind, and also to try to generate more positive states of mind, like kindness, you know, forgiveness, gratitude, which bring about well-being, and they improve, you know, every aspect of our life. So yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Venerable, it was a good answer.
Mm.
And my next question goes like this.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we talk about Buddhism, the karma comes into picture. Even Lord Krishna expressed about karma in Bhagavad Gita as well. So all the suffering what we are facing, is it from the past karma? What is the remedy of get rid of the karma, bad karma in this lifetime?
Mhm. Well, yeah, I mean, the main thing, I think the main thing we need to focus on is not creating more bad karma, right? This lifetime, and instead creating a lot of good karma, right? Positive karma. But I mean, the way karma works is that we engage in intentional actions. The definition of karma actually is the mental factor of intention, right? So whenever we engage in intentional actions, we create karma. So when we engage in intentional actions, we create this kind of force in our mind, and we put imprints. That plants imprints in our minds, and then those seeds or those imprints, they ripen in the future when they meet the appropriate conditions, right? So if we harm someone in this life, then it puts an imprint in the mind such that in the future, in this life or in a future life, then others, we experience the same thing. Others will harm us. And the same with benefit. If we benefit others in this life, then it plants an imprint in the mind. And when the appropriate conditions for that imprint to ripen come together, then we experience others benefiting us, to simplify it. So one thing is, we can't undo the karma we've created in past lives, in the past.
Okay.
But one of the main things we can do is try to create conditions in this life for our positive karmas to ripen. So in the past, it's not that we were just a bad person. We only created bad karma, right? We created a lot of good karma, right? So we want to create conditions in this life for our good karma to ripen, right? So how do we do that? One is by the first thing we discussed, generating a positive intention every day, really trying to live our lives in a way that we're trying to be good people. We're trying to help others. And that will definitely create conditions for our positive karma from the past to ripen as other people benefiting us, as meeting situations where, we're able to kind of develop, our lives are able to unfold in a way that is kind of progressing instead of declining, right? But that's not necessarily the case. I mean, even very good people meet very unfortunate circumstances. But the key in that case is to see that these unfortunate circumstances actually can be the best things for us sometimes. I mean, we can learn a lot from suffering, right? And from hardship. If we didn't have any hardship at all, then it'd be hard to mature as a person. It'd be hard to generate compassion for others. It'd be hard to generate sort of forbearance, kind of toughness to deal with. Ideally, we want to grow strong inside, as a person, so that we feel like we can handle anything, any situation that arises, and thereby be of more benefit to others. So if we never face any hardship, we can never do that. And then another positive aspect of experiencing the ripening of our negative karma is we recognize how painful it is to suffer. And if we really believe in the law of cause and effect, which is true, but most people or many people probably don't believe it. But when we suffer, we recognize, oh, I created the cause for this, right? The cause for this was my causing someone else to feel this way, to have this kind of experience, basically. So if I don't want to have this kind of suffering experience in the future, I need to change my own behavior, right? So that I don't harm others. I need to stop harming others, in short. So that's another benefit of our negative karma ripening, is we realize like how bad it is, right? And then we strengthen our determination not to create more negative karma.
And it's like if we talk about karma, it never ends, because all the sufferings depends on the past karma and the present karma, what we are doing. Then my next question attached to this question, like if we doing all good works, only good works, nothing but bad works, is it possible to eradicate all the painful and pain energy what we accumulated from the several lifetime and get a good relief or maybe attain Buddhahood?
Eventually, yes, but it's not like just in one lifetime, from the state of a total ordinary being to go to being a Buddha in one lifetime is really difficult. I mean, very unusual. So, and if we generally, when we're in a rush, it's for selfish reasons, right? It's like, I want to do this. I mean, it's okay to want to do things, of course, that's fine, but you know, enlightenment is not for ourselves alone. Enlightenment is something we try to achieve in order to benefit others. It's exclusively an altruistic intent, you know, it's an altruistic goal, you know, in order to benefit others. So if our wish is sincerely to benefit others, then there should be no time frame for that. It shouldn't be like, well, I'm going to benefit others for the rest of today, and then tomorrow I'll see what I feel like doing. No, it's not like that. Like, if we sincerely want to benefit others, we think no matter what happens, no matter how long it takes, I'll continually work to benefit others however I can. What happens to me, it doesn't matter so much. So you really give up. I mean, the aspiration to achieve enlightenment, if it's sincere, you really give up getting anything for yourself at all. It's just about how can I benefit others. And so the time scale doesn't matter, right? And so, because all of our negative karmas, right, and all of the harm we inflict on others is always driven by a selfish motivation, right? Selfish intention. So if we really give up a selfish intention, which is, again, it's not easy to do. It's not something we can just decide, oh yeah, that's true, I'm going to stop being selfish. No, you'll see. Our ego is very tricky, you know? It knows how to turn every action into somehow a self-serving action. It's really difficult to reduce and eliminate that. But gradually we can, because I know one of your later questions was about emptiness. When we investigate what is the self, actually, we see it's something totally different than what we habitually assume it to be like, right? So with wisdom, when we realize like actually how interdependent we are with other things in the world, that we're really part of this greater world, and the sense of I exist as something separate from that is a complete illusion. You know, it's a completely deluded attitude. Then it becomes more easy to see how it is possible to be, you know, purely altruistic, and thereby, you know, really just in a very natural way stop harming others and work to benefit others continually. And then it's kind of, you can imagine how, yeah, you could, over many lifetimes, all of one's negative karma become eradicated, or the seeds of negative karma just not have the conditions to ripen, right? So they just are defunct. And then we continually have kind of positive experience.
Venerable Legtsok, what exactly is the purpose of an altar, and how would you set one up and take care of it? Could you just give a little bit of an explanation, please?
Sure, yeah, sure. So an altar, basically the point of an altar is to a place where there's symbols that inspire us, right? So, I mean, an altar is, I mean, of course, we're talking, I mean, I'm a Buddhist monk, so usually I'm thinking in a Buddhist context. I mean, I'm looking at my altar, it's kind of just behind the laptop screen here. But in every religion, you know, we have altars. And so, and I think in, you know, pan-religious context, the purpose of an altar is to have images of the things that that remind us of our highest aspirations and our ideals, and to inspire us. So we have images of our teachers, images of, you know, for a Buddhist, images of Buddha, his team, the Dharma, and the spiritual community, the Sangha. And yeah, usually we put it in a place where we, you know, where either we see it regularly. It's also a basis upon which to create merit. So when we put out, you know, offerings of light or flowers or incense and so forth, then it's a way of practicing generosity and also paying homage to something we consider very sacred, and thereby creating a stronger connection with it. So creating the causes then to meet again and again the spiritual guidance, basically from, you know, from our teachers, again from our objects of refuge, right? So it's good to have, yeah, it's good to have that, those kind of, and we don't have to have just one holy, you know, altar and have nothing, no inspiring images other places in our house. It's good to surround ourselves by inspiring images as much as we can, but especially in view of wherever we meditate. Because when we meditate, we want to bring all those ideals that those figures represent to mind and try to integrate them into our own kind of being.
Venerable, my next question is like, I already mentioned about emptiness. This is to the benefit of all the audience and especially for the beginners and the new students. What is emptiness is my first question. Followed that, if you have somebody to meditate, we have to think of any object, maybe Tara portrait or the Buddha, Sakyamuni Buddha portrait, photo of Buddha, or any of the object we need to concentrate and meditate. If it is emptiness means empty, how does one meditate on emptiness?
Yeah, good question. I mean, first of all, emptiness, basically, it's not, emptiness doesn't mean nihilism. Right? It doesn't mean that nothing exists. So, so it's empty of something, right? Just like, a cup. Well, I use this mug as a prop in almost every Zoom video I make these days. So, like this mug it's like 2/3 empty. So that means it's empty of liquid, right? Because liquid is something you put in a cup usually. So then it's empty of stuff that you put in the cup, right? So it's empty of something specific. So in Buddhism, when we talk about emptiness, also we're talking about the lack of existence of something that's very specific, not just the lack of any kind of existence, right? So what kind of lack of existence are we talking about? Basically, the lack of existence of something, of things existing in an isolated way, totally separate from anything else, right? So in Buddhism, we're saying, and especially a person, that a person, there is no person, not any one person and no aspect of a person that exists in isolation without being related to, or its existence somehow depending upon other things, right? You cannot find some essential person, like a soul, that exists in isolation from anything else. So the best way to start meditating on emptiness is to think about how things are interconnected, right?
Yes.
How things existence depends upon other things which are not them. So like, with regard to our body, we can think, where did my body come from? Did I create it myself? No, it came from my parents. And then how is it sustained? Is it sustained just by itself alone? No, it depends upon air and water and food and shelter and so forth. And then our mind in the same way. Where did my mind come from? Did I just kind of create my mind? Well, no, that would be totally contradictory, because that would mean I had to exist before my mind and then create my mind somehow, Like I can create this cup, but I can't create my mind. Like it's like my mind and me, they arose simultaneously. So where did my mind come from? I didn't create it. It came from something other than me. And then all the thoughts, all the knowledge I have, all the experiences I've had, did I create all those? No, they all came about in dependence upon countless other things. And the same is true for anything that exists. I mean, I challenge anyone listening to this open heart conversation, find something that exists in isolation by itself all alone without having any contact or any dependence upon anything else. If you can find something, I will give you $1 million. I don't have $1 million, but you won't be able to find anything that exists in that way. So the best way to start meditating on emptiness is to look at these kind of interdependent relationships. Physical things have, mental things have, as a person have. How we exist on so many other. We exist independent. Everything exists independent upon countless other things. Right? So they're empty of the opposite of that. Empty of existing without depending upon anything else. There is nothing that exists like that. Yeah. Oh, so you were saying, so then to meditate on that, what do you focus on?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. So it's not like, so basically initially you focus on interdependence, right? How things arise in dependence upon causes and conditions, how everything is made up of parts, things are made up of different parts, and also how our mind, the existence of things depends upon their being known, their being experienced or perceived. So this is a little more subtle aspect to emptiness, but everything exists in dependence upon being kind of conceptualized, basically. Until we conceptualize like this is a mug by someone. It's not a mug, right? Until it could be, if I started putting pens and pencils in this and use it as a pen holder, then it's a pen holder at that point, right? If I turn it upside down and I put a Buddha statue on top of it, then it's a Buddha statue stand, right?
Yes.
So what things do not exist independently of our concepts about what we think they are, right? Yeah, that's another. So when we focus on meditation and emptiness, it's not like meditating on compassion, where we just generate an attitude, towards. We look at the suffering of people and generate an attitude. And it's not like that. It's more like we investigate, analytically with a rational kind of rational mind, reasoning, just to think about, well, how do things exist, basically? In what way do things exist? And then gradually we come to this clarity that, yeah, everything is interdependent, and therefore things are empty of existing in isolation from anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice explanation, Venerable. Thank you so much.
Okay, I hope it wasn't too long. Okay, Nicole?
Venerable Legtsok, what exactly are prostrations? What is the purpose of them, and how and when are they done? I've seen many people doing prostrations, and it can kind of look like an exercise, like physical exercise. And but I am under the impression it has something more to do with the mind than the actual physical exercise. So I'm just wondering if you could explain a little bit about this, and what's the right way to think about prostrations, and how would you actually start doing them?
Sure. I was recently thinking, the first time I think maybe I ever heard of prostrations in the way we're talking about, like I mean, it's not only exclusive to Buddhism, I don't think, but it's not so much common in the West. In the Christian tradition, you don't see so much kind of this prostration. It's more common, I think, in Asia, in India and China and the culture. So I was thinking, when I was a kid, I watched this, the movie Marco Polo. I think it was like a series of movies about this Italian explorer who went to China. He's one of the first Westerners to go to China. And I think, as I recall, like when he first met the Chinese emperor, it's a custom in China that everyone who comes before the emperor, they kowtow, which is a kind of prostration, right? But Marco Polo, being from the West, he's like, I'm not going to prostrate to anybody. No? Who do you think I am? And so I forget what kind of arrangement they worked out, so that both could be kind of, pleased. But yeah, it's something I think many Westerners find a little strange, to prostrate to something. Isn't that demeaning or something? Or are you pledging obedience to this kind of thing? And if it's like a statue or something, if it's human being, does that mean you're like giving yourself as a slave to them or something? No, it's not like that. If it's a statue, an inanimate object, then are you worshiping idols, which is expressly forbidden in the Ten Commandments? So also, no, it's not like that in Buddhism. So in Buddhism, the way we think about prostrations is it's a way of showing respect, right? It's a way of recognizing the qualities. If you're prostrating to a person, like usually we prostrate to our guru or our lama, the one we recognize them as someone who's guiding me in the path to become a better person, right? Because they've developed positive qualities as a person that I want to follow. I want to develop those qualities. So the most similar thing in the West is like, if there's a really highly respected doctor or teacher, when they come into the room, people stand up out of respect, right? So as a way, usually like at the beginning of if one of our teachers comes to a teaching hall to teach, then first we stand up to show respect, and then when they sit down, then the students will offer prostrations as a way of just showing their respect for the teacher. And it's by showing respect, we create a cause to receive guidance from them. Because one of the biggest obstacles to our receiving guidance, whether in the context of a spiritual teaching or just in the context of our friendships with our friends and family, one of the biggest obstacles to our receiving guidance is our own arrogance and our own pride, right? our ego. So prostrating is a way of, you physically show your humility, right? Before, your teacher, or before, a stupa or a statue, some which again are symbols of that which we turn to for guidance, right? So by showing our humility and kind of swallowing our ego and our pride in that moment when we prostrate, it helps us reduce our pride, basically, which kind of helps to open our mind to receiving guidance by cultivating and showing respect, basically.
Thank you.
No, I requested, please explain about three jewels, how that each interconnected each other.
Okay. Easy. Yeah, usually we use the analogy of a doctor. So first of all, us who, as Buddhists, we go for refuge to the three jewels, right? So typically we see ourselves as, why do we practice any spiritual tradition at all? Why do we meditate? In the Buddhist context, why would we go for refuge to the three jewels? It's because we have some problem, basically, we have some difficulties we don't know how to deal with, and we feel like we need some more guidance than just the internal wisdom that we have access to at this time, right? So
yes.
So we see ourselves as like a patient, like a sick person, right? Who has some physical problem. It's analogous, right? We have some physical problem, like a sick person has some physical problem, which they need guided, they need expertise, someone with more expertise about how to treat that. So who do they go to? A doctor, right? Someone who studied medicine, someone who studied how to deal with different physical elements. So the Buddha is like a doctor, right? A Buddha, or so the three jewels of, the three refuges you're speaking about are the three rares. They're called rare and sublime ones. Rare because it's difficult to find beings with so much positive qualities, and sublime because they have so much positive qualities, basically. So the three are the Buddha, who's the teacher, and the Dharma, which is his teaching, the explanation he gave, the instructions he gave. And then the Sangha, which is the spiritual community, which dedicates themselves to practicing, and thereby from generation to generation, making sure that teaching is a living experience in the world, and thereby available for other people to have access, even though the Buddha himself, Shakyamuni Buddha, passed away a long time ago, right? So the Buddha, the teacher, is analogous to a doctor. He's a skillful, he has knowledge and skills, and the skills to show others how to be free of different problems, right? And then the Dharma that the Buddha teaches, his explanations of things, of how to live, how to practice, how to deal with difficult, situations, especially different afflictive emotions, is like the doctor giving a prescription. Okay, you have this kind of sickness, then you need to take this kind of medicine, or do this kind of exercise, or eat this kind of food, or whatever. So the Buddha gives all different kind of prescriptions about how to deal with different problems. And then just going to a doctor and receiving a prescription is not enough. We have to then go to a pharmacy to get the prescription fulfilled. And if we need like treatment in a hospital, there's a whole team of nurses and nurse assistants to help us follow the doctor's advice and receive the appropriate treatment. So that's like the Sangha community. They help us actually practice the Buddha's advice according to, in the proper way, according to his instruction. So they support us in that way. So that's how they're related.
Thank you, Venerable.
Sure. Okay, Nicole?
Yes, Venerable Legtsok, if someone has the opportunity to visit a temple or a stupa or a prayer wheel, how do you make the most beneficial use of that opportunity? What should you do when you go there?
First of all, wear your mask and maintain social distancing. Actually, here in the monastery, we have a lot of temples and a lot of holy objects, and usually many people visit, but these days they're all closed because of the pandemic. So people, for the most part, people can't really visit. So when I go out and walk around the monastery sometimes, and I see the temples where usually they're open, you can go in, make prayers, make prostrations, make offerings, and there are people visiting, and they're closed. It really makes me feel a little sad not to see. but but the most important temple is in our own mind, right? So that's where all the change eventually happens. The reason we go to external temples, whether you mentioned prayer wheels or stupas, is because those things, they're public symbols of, again, ideals that we have: compassion, wisdom, not harming others, using our life to benefit others. Those like a stupa, it represents the Buddha's enlightened body, speech, and mind. And of course, the Buddha embodies all of those ideals of compassion, wisdom, and so forth. If you go to a temple, again, you just see really big, beautiful images of the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha. A prayer wheel also, it's filled with mantras, so it primarily is a symbol of the Buddha's enlightened speech. But when we go, it's important, when we go to those places, I mean, in some degree, those objects, because, well, they're like focal points for many people who have faith in that way. They've all focused their energy there. They come there. And also they're objects that have been blessed and consecrated by holy beings, over many generations, ideally, or will be. So they're kind of a focal point for this positive energy of people who do have a common aspiration, to be a better person in the ways that are expressed by whatever that object symbolizes. And thereby the objects do have power, they have a kind of power due to our collective intention, due to the way many people have related to them over years. So from the side of the object, there is some power. But the more important thing is really from our side to bring to mind what that object represents, and by being in the presence of that object, or the temple or the stupa or the prayer wheel, to bring to mind, like, what does this represent, and how can I embody that better, in my daily life? So to really reflect on the meaning is probably the most powerful way that those objects will benefit us. So I think it's important when we go to a temple or a stupa or something, another holy object, to really practice mindfulness, not just watching our breath, but mindfulness of what is the meaning. Why is this temple here in the first place? And the different objects in it, what do they represent? And how can I apply, the wisdom and the teaching they express to my own mind and in my own life? Then it becomes really beneficial. If we just walk around the stupa, kind of chatting with our friends, expecting it's going to do something for us, it's not very helpful. Yeah.
I see.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's next?
Well, Venerable, my question goes like this. See, being a samsaric, as it was an individual, how does that one can practice bodhicitta? And is it good to leave the samsara and be a monk to practice bodhicitta by keeping Lord Siddhartha in mind? He left his family and the palace to attain Buddhahood. Please do let us know.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can practice any aspect of the Buddhist path, or most aspects of the Buddhist path, either as a layperson. So I think by a samsaric individual, you mean like a layperson, right? Someone who has a family and has a job and works for a income, and so forth, versus a monk or a nun who they give up working for money. They're celibate, so they don't have a family, and they don't have all the social responsibilities so much. And they rely upon the generosity of others for their livelihood. So basically, I mean, practicing bodhicitta, practicing renunciation, practicing meditation, and trying to develop the wisdom of emptiness, either can do. But the big advantage of an ordained person is they have more time and energy to do that, because that's the only thing they're responsible for. They don't. And also there's like probably you all experience, most people that and your family and your extended society, there's no pressure on you to meditate or to be a good Buddhist practitioner or something like that. Quite the opposite. If you talk about your practice of Buddhism, they're like, what are you talking about? If you talk about your meditation, they're like, why you do that? So whereas for a monk or nun, we have all this. I mean, it helps to have the pressure of the lay community on us to be good practitioners, to know how to meditate well, to try to, be a good person, be a role model for others. And that kind of pressure really, really helps. I mean, generally it helps. For some people, it can become too much, but if you can, adopt it in a constructive way, it's a really powerful, positive force. So, but really, whether a person is a samsaric person or not depends upon their mind. I mean, there can be an ordained person who's very samsaric, who's just thinking day and night about. I mean, hopefully most are not, but there could be, some who are thinking about getting praise from others, becoming famous, achieving really some like status, getting more wealth and prosperity and power, So, and whereas there are many lay people for sure who are not concerned with those things at all. They really are just have a very pure, kind heart. They, not selfish at all. Really want to, benefit others, and really don't care about material wealth and power and things. Really want to, become a more spiritually evolved person. So whether we're a samsaric person or not really depends on our minds. Right? But yeah, I think you can use, there are definitely aspects of lay life. I think like raising children is a big one, I think, or taking care of one's parents, that you can really use to benefit very deep loving kindness, compassion, and selflessness in a way that maybe ordained people have more difficulty doing because they're in a different kind of situation.
So you mean to say that everything's set in our mind, whether you're samsaric or the monk, doesn't matter. If you want to attain without, it depends on how mindset you are setting, right?
Exactly, definitely. All depends upon our mindset. I mean, you can find other. I mean, in this Shakyamuni Buddha's past lives, many of his past life, he lived his whole life as a layperson. And you can find many other examples of Buddhist masters, like Drum Tempa or King, some of the famous Tibetan kings, Trisong Denzin, or Songtsen Gompo, who lived their life as lay people, and not just and very in different kinds of lay people. And many of the Mahasiddhas, the 80 Mahasiddhas, many of them are lay, have lived as lay people. Milarepa, another one.
Thank you, Venerable.
Sure. Oh, Chandra Goman. I was trying to think of an Indian one. Chandra Goman is another great Buddhist scholar and practitioner who was a lay person.
Okay.
I think our hour is about up. Anyway, Nicole, did you want to ask another question?
Venerable Legtsok, I was just going to say, is there anything that we didn't cover that you really feel needs to be said in this conversation?
Well, one thing I guess I'd like to say, because we're in the middle of a global pandemic, right? That's why we're on Zoom together. So, it's really easy, I think, to look at the situation of the world now with, in politics, there's the rise of kind of nationalism and this really polarization of the political discussion, and thereby, in many countries, I think the two sides of the political spectrum, they're having more difficulty working together, which is a big concern, to many of us. And then in terms of the climate, there's, the climate destruction is really scary, basically. To think about, how, our economies, the way our economy works, our consumeristic society works, that there's such strong forces, and we're so dependent upon fossil fuels and upon the way the agriculture industry is, the construction industry is. It seems like really difficult to reverse these forces that are destroying our environment and our climate. And then on top of that, this pandemic of COVID-19. So it's easy, I think, to kind of start to feel hopeless, right? And start to feel like, oh, the whole world is just going down. But I think it's important to not let ourselves slip into that, to try to think of, but also not to be naive. I mean, it's important to see the problems that exist as they are, right? Not just turn a blind eye to them and pretend they're not there, or to try to put a sugar coating on things. But it's also important to remember, like the the ability we have to change, and how, you know, I like imagine people who lived during World War II. I mean, compared to what's happening now, World War II must have seemed a lot worse. I mean, the whole world's at war with each other, the Japanese versus the Americans, you know, versus the Chinese, and then, you know, in Europe, you know, German. So, and so many people being killed and so much violence. It really must, I imagine, like in the midst of World War II, and it lasted for 4 years. You know, this pandemic hasn't even lasted 1 year yet. So I imagine in the midst of World War II, it must have been easy to become really hopeless, to think the world is never going to be the same again. You know, like the world might never be at peace again. So now in the midst of a pandemic, I mean, but then out of World War II came so much peace, probably the longest enduring period of peace, you know, without a major war in the world that's ever in human history, maybe ever, you know, in modern civilized human history that's ever happened, right? So out of something really bad, something really good can come, and often does come. So I hope now, like, that, you know, we're in a situation that's really pretty bad, right? But I hope that because of that, something really good can come about. Like, can you imagine? I mean, in the future, definitely we'll be much more careful to not let a pandemic happen again, won't we? I mean, I think it's just common sense. And then with global climate change, I mean, wouldn't it be really amazing if we can make a transfer from this fossil fuel dependent energy system to a really green energy system, and then really make the world a really clean place, and you know, have enough energy to do many things, but in a way that's sustainable, and also really value like clean air, clean water, clean soil, and clean food, like we never have before. So in that way, I'm really hopeful that we can kind of really turn a corner and make the world like a kind of paradise for, you know, for human flourishing, but not physical flourishing, like we have more and more bigger houses and comfortable environment, but really mental flourishing. Like we can become happier and happier species, you know, individuals as a species, and work better together and live in greater harmony with each other as a global community than we ever have, right? I think that's really possible, but I think it's important that we, you know, don't just look at the bad things that are happening, but think about the positive potential that could come out of this situation, and direct our energy toward that, and speak about that with other people, and spread that ideal, you know, yeah, that what positive can come out of this. Yeah, so that's something really important, I think, to think about now. Yeah, let's dedicate now.
Yes, yes. So, yes.
So let's think of, you know, we started out at the beginning with a positive aspiration, thinking that, you know, whatever we do through this conversation, may it all become something that's beneficial, not only to, you know, the three of us, but to, you know, the world at large. So now, you know, at the end, then we think, you know, whatever we've done with a positive intention, not the intention to harm anyone, but rather the intention to bring about the welfare of ourselves and others. So by whatever energy, positive energy we've created through this session, then, you know, may that come about by the force of whatever positive energy we've created together here. May all sentient beings be free from sickness, especially those in hospitals or those suffering from, you know, abuse, different forms of abuse, and especially this COVID-19 pandemic. And there's many people suffering, you know, so much fear and anxiety about being able to pay their rent, where their next meal is going to come from, you know, about their children's education and so forth. So may this global pandemic quickly be resolved. May everyone receive, you know, a vaccine that they need. But more importantly, I think, may everyone's mental afflictions be completely cleared away, and in short, may everyone be free from every form of suffering, and have every happiness up to full enlightenment. And may all of our actions, you know, now and in the future always contribute to that. And may all positive conditions to bring about, you know, the welfare of us and others in the world come together. Okay, so thank you very much. It's been a very enjoyable conversation with you both.
And it's my duty to say official vote of thanks for the session. On behalf of FMT India and the Choe Khor Sum Ling Center, all the students of Choe Khor Sum Ling Center across the world. We are very thankful to Venerable Asakla, who gave us precious time today on the Sunday on the occasion to have an open heart conversation to share the dialogues and discuss about Buddhism and meditation and other aspects. Thank you very much, Venerable. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Nicola, for joining the session. Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu.
Okay, take care and see you next time.